Welcome to Parenting Differently, where we leave behind the old way of parenting and allow the gifts of motherhood to raise us. Different, perhaps, to how we were raised, different to how society tells us to raise our kids, maybe even different to how we expected, just different. I'm your host, Anja Simmons. Welcome. I'm a mum of two big people. I am a yoga teacher and a parenting coach, but I came into parenting as a trained British nanny, having raised many other people's children, and I thought this was going to be easy. I actually didn't give it much thought. I thought I've just got this. This is just what I've been doing, and I was fully wrong. And it was the hardest and most overwhelming and beautiful and deep self-realization journey that I had ever been on. And I'm still on it. It didn't stop, even though they're big. So I welcome you, and I'm super excited for my guest today, Tanya Tinney. She is a coach, a blogger on Tuesday Tales, which is a very fun blog to read, has 3 college degrees, was a psychologist for 14 years. And how I met was in the wonderful social media world of Facebook. And we share the same sense of humor for sure. And I've always found her posts very hilarious. She's very authentic. She's real. She's a straight talker. And I'm always inspired by people like that. So welcome, Tanya.
Thank you, Anja. I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing it Anja. One of my daughters is Anja. I think you pronounce it Anja.
I take both.
Matter.
Yes, my mom will
Thank
be
you.
happy. She likes it,
Thank
Anya.
you. I love the intro. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm so grateful that we met several years ago on Facebook too.
Yeah.
You have a beautiful soul and a beautiful aura, and I just love your energy. So thank you for inviting me to do this.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll dive right in. First question, who are you and who are you mothering?
Okay, so um, my name is Tanya, but I am, more than my name. You have introduced me for my credentials, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, and I'm just a person trying to do my best every day. I am constantly growing, constantly learning, and just sort of muddling my way through things, especially parenting. And I am a parent of 3 teen girls. I have twins that are 13 and a 15-year-old.
Mm, teenage years. Ooh.
There are a lot of hormones in this house.
I bet.
Yes.
Yes, I have wonderful. So, in this journey of motherhood, if we dive right there, what are you uncovering about yourself?
Oh gosh. My kids have been my greatest teachers. um, I have, I was in my 30s when I had my children. And so I already had my career, I had my degrees, I had my life all planned out. And I knew everything, you see.
Yes,
And
good.
so, right.
Me too.
I know I had it all figured out and I knew everything. And I think part of being a psychologist too, like that gave me this extra oomph that I really knew everything
Mm-hmm.
until I had children. And then I realized I really knew nothing at all. And it was the biggest wake up call, the most beautiful journey, but the biggest wake up call. My favorite line from a friend that I met when I was pregnant with my first. I hadn't seen her in a while, and she had children before me, and she said she's a beautiful person, and of course a psychologist. I'm a nerd, right? But
Love it.
she's just a beautiful, soft energy person, and she just said, before I had children. The best way I can describe it is my world went from black and white to color.
Oh, I
And
like
I
that.
have never forgotten that because
Mm.
it was probably it it's the thing that made the most sense as soon as my first child was born.
Right,
It
right.
it absolutely, it didn't make sense really at all before that. But as
Mm-hmm.
soon as that happened, I was like, oh, I understood it. And it's just one of those knowings that you
Yeah,
have that you can't have by words,
you
if that makes
can't.
sense.
You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And what do you think, or what do you know that you're doing differently to how you were raised?
I hope I'm doing a lot of things differently.
Okay.
um, I it's very hard to answer that question
Okay.
because I could talk for hours about that. I could probably write a book about that.
Maybe you
I've
should.
definitely written blogs about that. But what am I doing differently? I'm trying very, very hard every day to probably the biggest and probably sappiest way to put it is to say I'm trying very hard every day to to show my girls, my children, that they are loved
Mm.
and that they are worthy of love unconditionally.
Right.
And I could say 100 things I'm trying to do, but if I were to pick the most important thing that
Mm-hmm.
I try,
Mm-hmm.
is that. Yeah,
And I
because
love
that's
that
what I
you're
do.
saying that you try, because it's not, I don't think we're never going to reach that perfection, right? Like I feel like I'm always almost on the other side of parenting, kind of like my daughter's about to be 20, my son's 23, right? Although,
Right.
they're all
I
at
mean, it'll
home.
never end. It
Yes,
never
yes,
ends.
exactly.
Yeah, the
Exactly. But
day-to-day
it's,
parenting is,
yeah, yeah. And it's just that intention, right?
yeah.
That we set in there.
Yeah. Well, you probably have laid the groundwork, right? So I'm trying to lay the groundwork, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really hope I laid some because teenage years are hard.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, yeah.
They're really, they're different hard, different hard. Every
Yeah.
stage has been, has its own hard, but this is
Oh,
different. Yeah.
it is. It is. I was sort of surprised how different. I didn't sort of, well, you don't really, luckily, you don't really think of that. You've got the baby and you're doing the baby, and then you do the toddler, and then, you luckily
Yeah.
don't have to think too far ahead
Yeah.
because it will hit you when it's there, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Good. Okay. Um, and what ways have you tried? And this is kind of neat, and I'm curious about as a psychologist, having had that training and had your practice.
Mhm.
What ways have you tried not to hand your baggage over to them?
Oh gosh.
I've
Huh?
not just gone in deep. I've got no light questions
I'm
for
totally,
you.
I'm 100% fine with deep. That's my
Okay.
jam. I have to be able to take as good as I give, right?
Okay, perfect. Yes, yes.
um, what have can you,
Yeah,
repeat?
rephrase it. Yeah, I'll say it again. So, because always mess my questions. So, what ways have you tried, or are you trying to not put your baggage
Oh, yes.
over to them?
Okay. Well, the first way, I think, I think one of the good things for me about having my children in my 30s was I had done a lot of work on myself before that.
Right.
I realized after I had my children that there was a whole lot more to do.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly not saying that I had it all figured out. Um, but I feel like I feel like for me personally, if I'd
Mm-hmm.
had children younger, I think there would have been a lot more baggage dumping,
Yes.
because I really had a lot of growing and healing to do before
Mm-hmm.
that. And even into my 30s, it's amazing what having children does. It really kind of triggers old stuff, and we could again talk about this for hours, but like
Yeah.
there's reasons for that, right? Different ages and all kinds of things, that stages that my kids went through that would kind of bring up stuff for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so part of it was how I learned not to dump my baggage was I tried to be really aware that that's what was happening for
Oh,
me,
right.
that
Right.
I was getting triggered by stuff, or that stuff was coming up for me that I didn't expect. I really, really tried. Uh, I also realized that there were times where I wasn't as connected to that, self-awareness. And
Mm-hmm.
that would happen when I was run down or not well. I mean, for a lot of years, I had, um, I have an autoimmune disease, and my husband had to travel a lot for work. So I'd be kind of single momming it. I don't want to like sound, because there's single moms out there without a partner. So,
Right.
um, but there was a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. And so that would end up kind of, when you're run down, your triggers are easier to be triggered, if that makes sense.
And they come quicker, right? They come before you have a chance to engage your head.
Right. You don't have the same ability to use your, coping mechanisms and stuff. And so I'm sure, and I know that there've been many times that I have dumped my stuff, and I probably still do. There are many things that I catch myself and I go, oh gosh, I did it again, or I did it again. So I think self-awareness, working on myself, acknowledging when I'm, overwhelmed, stressed, needing some time out has been really, really important for me. I'm a person who wants to do it all and do it all perfectly. Right. So a little bit of a perfectionist, and so I've had to unlearn that, and be okay with imperfection. And, which was good because I have to learn to be kind of okay with the imperfection in me so I can allow my kids to be imperfect. And, so again, do I have an answer to that? A perfect answer to what I've done? Not really, other than I really try to be self-aware as much as I can.
See, to me, that's amazing. That's an incredible answer to share, purely because we know that when we are not taking care of ourselves, right?
Yes.
Everything in life is overwhelming. Everything in life, our experiences, our want to shout, anger for me is a big one. So anger would come quicker, right? And it's very easy to, if you're not self-aware, to think that is that child is friggin' annoying. If that child would get it together, right?
Yes, I'm pretty sure even this week I told one of my children they're annoying because I was super annoyed. I mean, this is like raw honesty, right? I mean, how do you not, there is no perfect. No, I mean, maybe there is somewhere. It's not me then.
It's nobody in this room.
Right? It's not me, but even in that moment, I knew it wasn't just her. I mean, she probably is annoying.
Yeah, who isn't?
But I was already annoyed.
Right.
So it was really my 90% me. Was really the issue. And so, then you go, okay, I'm just going to go take a time out. I'm going to do my thing, and then I'm going to come back and I'll be like, we'll be fine. We're okay. Everything's fine. But these are just the moments that happen. So
yeah. And I think when mine was young, I also had my son when I was 30. I was in my 30s when I had him, and I didn't even realize that you could give yourself permission to pull back a minute or have the awareness, because I was very much similar to the perfectionist, but I really just thought only I can do it all. You just bring it on, people. I can work here. I can take care of that. I have a baby. I'm breastfeeding. I'd work and come home to breastfeed and go back. And, I just, look at me. And I sort of wore that proudly until you realize, right? We got to give permission to people to sort of say, no wonder I'm feeling snappy and anxious. No wonder the day feels ruined just purely because, this dinner didn't turn out,
Right. Because we're already maxed out.
Yes.
Physiologically and emotionally and every way. And then we're trying to be everything for everybody. So it doesn't quite work out well.
No. And then how do you make amends first to yourself? Like when you've lost it, say even last week or, when they were younger, and you've got 3 very similar in age. So I can only imagine how the younger years were,
Well, they're 21 months apart. So I had 3 under 2 at one point.
Yes. Wow.
So I can tell you, I don't remember the first year of my twins' life. And that, I mean, that's kind of scary, but it's true.
Oh, I can imagine.
I'm sorry. What do I do?
How do you make amends for yourself? Instead of piling on your own shame and guilt
that will be one of my, I think, lifelong challenges.
Okay.
Is to learn how to let go of the guilt and responsibility. I used to joke, I grew up in Ireland, and so, and Irish Catholic. And so I still joke about the fact that, I mean, Irish Catholic people can make you feel guilty for breathing more oxygen than you are. You know, like I could find any reason to
Right.
feel intense guilt and shame for almost anything. Um,
Right.
so I've had to do a lot of undoing of that programming,
Right.
which really kind of is programming. Um, and so what I do have to be aware, right? Because I'm I'm almost hyper aware
Okay.
of when I've messed up. So that's
Mm-hmm.
also a good and a bad thing.
Right. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had to learn to kind of take a breath, take a step away. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if I get irritated or
Yeah.
overwhelmed, or the piece might be snappy, um, and just take some time. I do breathing, right, because I need to
Mm-hmm.
regulate,
Yes.
and I do, you know, my particular like out breath, like a you're activating the vagus nerve, right? Like
Yeah.
you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's
Mm.
like the out breath. Anyway, I do like several of those and just sort of get my body kind of deactivated.
Yes. Yes.
So I'll do
Love
that
that.
in the moment. That's my in the moment, like right away.
Right. Right.
And I find that if I remember to do that fairly quickly, then I don't have the same cascade of negative thoughts
Okay.
or shame and guilt, because
Mm-hmm.
I think they're all packaged together.
Right. Right.
So I think the easiest way is to kind of go with that, and then that helps. And I'll just remind myself. I'll remind myself. You know, I'm doing the best I can. I do the best I can every day. I'm trying really genuinely to do the best I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and you know, I realize I have to remind myself that my kids are little human beings too.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's perfect. They're trying to figure themselves out. I'm trying to figure me out.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to do this together. And it's not necessarily bad that I'm not perfect every
No.
day.
No.
I don't think it would be any great service to them as human beings if everything was laid out perfectly. But I do always apologize.
Okay. Good.
If
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have if I really have lost it, it really doesn't happen very much, at least
Mm-hmm.
not anymore,
Yeah.
where it would be something where I need to apologize.
Right. Yeah.
But if I do, if it happens, I will go back and I
Right.
will say that I'm sorry. I mean, that's one thing I learned too from I don't think I've ever heard I'm sorry from either of my parents.
Right.
A
Right.
genuine,
Yeah.
like, in the
Yeah.
moment, just
Yeah.
have a conversation, I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's good for them to hear that, to feel that, to go like, you're just a normal person. Like,
Mm.
I tell them, I try to balance telling them that I'm a human, you know, I make mistakes,
Yeah.
so that it's not feel sorry for me
Yes.
thing. Like it's
Yes. Because then you
tricky.
feel like, oh, you're just handing the guilt over there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a tricky thing, and I don't know if I've gotten it right, but I
Mm-hmm.
try all the time, because I'm like, I'm not going to apologize for everything I do, and I'm also not, you know, I don't want my kids feeling sorry for me, or, you know, going, oh, you poor thing. But I also try to be authentic
Yeah.
and
Yes.
real with them, like a human
Mm-hmm.
being, and go like, I'm fallible, you know, I make
Yes.
mistakes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I'm quicker to be aware that I need to apologize, I think, as they got older than
yeah,
I was earlier on. It was easy to go, oh, sorry, but it's such a vulnerable place for me to
yeah,
do the sorry. I mean, I messed up, well, I mess up all the time, but this week I butted right in on my daughter's business and I know better and she knows better and I know how to trust her, but I was kind of like, oh, let me just do a little interference. And as soon
yes.
as I was through text because we weren't together, I sent it. My first thought was, oh, I just did it again. Mind your business. Step away, lady. Right? This is what I
But
teach.
at least you have that awareness, right? Because it was
Yeah, but I did then take the
okay,
next
I'm
step.
stepping out of this.
Yeah, yeah. And then I went, oops, sorry, got in the way. you know?
Right? And I think that that's okay. I
Oh,
mean, you know, we're all
completely.
figuring this out together, but I really do think it's okay. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
are
God,
we
yeah.
supposed to be perfect and we're still parents. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
any parent that doesn't want the best for their kid. I mean,
Mm.
sorry, I should take that back. There probably are plenty of parents that don't want the best. Usually
Don't know
because
them.
they're caught up in their own chaos, right? It's
Yes.
not even a necessarily selfish thing. It's just
Right.
they're not available, right?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so you're, you know, to I don't know a time, I don't care what age my kids are, I'm probably always gonna want the best for them. So
Yeah.
if it seems like I think I know something that would be good or better, I'm probably going to be obnoxious and share that.
I know.
But I'm going to try really hard to let them just do their thing, right? I'm
Yeah,
still going
yeah.
to share it, but then you still got to live your own life and you're going to make mistakes. And I
Yeah.
have to be okay with that, right?
Yes, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. Yeah, yeah. Because I would often think, oh, well, they would know I'm sorry and not actually say it, right?
Right.
Oh, here, oh, let me cuddle you or whatever. Like, let me make it better. And it really was my own awareness of saying, step up, put it
Yeah.
out there. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And
It's
maybe I have
always
to say it a
hard.
thousand times. I'm sorry today too. I messed
I
up
know.
again. Oh, and today. Oh, I just messed
I
up again.
know. Then I have to catch myself from saying sorry. I'm sorry all the time, right? No,
It's a
hang on.
British thing, I think, right? We just go, oh, sorry. Oh,
It is.
sorry.
Oh, yes. I mean, every second word, and sorry, sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I
But
say
it's not
sorry.
authentic, yeah.
It's 30 years later, and I can't stop. I say sorry for everything, but it's a different sorry.
Yes.
It's a different sorry,
Yes.
right? The
Yeah.
real sorries are very hard to say.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
the
I
sorry,
agree.
like excuse me, is different, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I agree. So, in being when you were fully immersed in parenting, which you still are now, but like when it was sort of more so, was there a pivotal moment in there in maybe your learning or in your mindset that you were like, I don't want to parent that way? That's a
You
big question.
know, I've thought about that question,
Okay.
um, and there were so many moments that
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that I have a pivotal one.
Okay.
There were probably bigger ones and smaller ones. There were ones, I'll be honest here, and I think
Yeah.
maybe because I don't know who exactly your viewership or listenership is, but I think that there are many people who are probably in a very similar boat to myself. I can't speak for anybody else in
Mm-hmm.
terms of your how you grew up, and so you might say, any varying degrees of kind of parents that were not, very involved to
Mm-hmm.
complete neglect, right? So
Right.
somewhere in that spectrum, and
Okay.
you don't some I didn't. I think I knew that I was missing many many things. It was like
Right.
holes, in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
road
Okay.
that someone needed to come fill in, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody was coming. They were
Right. Oh.
filled in. So what happened was I had done a lot of work on
Yeah.
myself, but what happened when I had children was suddenly there was another wave. There was a new awareness of things that I didn't receive, that I
Mm.
almost didn't even realize how much I needed
Right.
until I had children. And I went, oh my. Like I think
Yeah.
I was okay with it. I coped with it. I was cool with it. I laughed about it. I joked about it. Um, but now that I have children, it's mind blowing to me the things that I would just take for granted, like that I
Mm-hmm.
would do for my child that wouldn't, or I wouldn't do, or
Right. Yeah.
and it was so again, it was like it wasn't a moment, it was so many of those
Yes.
where
Yeah.
I went, oh, oh, oh heck no. Can I swear on
Yeah.
this? Sorry, I'm
Yeah. Oh,
trying.
yeah.
I
Why
have a little bit of a potty mouth, but I'm trying really hard.
not?
So
Me
those
too. Have a sign.
um
Do not swear.
I know I should have a sign like that. Nobody gave me a sign. So do not swear. That's so yeah, so I think it was without like sounding really morose or like
No,
oh, so sad. But I've gone
it's
through
real.
those. Like,
Yeah.
I'm keeping it light here, but I mean, there have been very dark nights of the soul, and there's been very, very difficult things that have happened, and big shifts that happened, that were kind of not what's the word? I guess my children were catalysts for it
Right.
in a way that
Right.
innocently they
Mm-hmm.
were very innocent in it,
Yeah.
but they brought so many new awarenesses to me in a way that I like hadn't felt or seen because I
Right.
wasn't a mother before that. Does that make sense? So it
Oh,
was
totally. I fully relate actually for
okay.
in
Okay.
terms of
So it
yeah.
was
Yeah.
yeah. So it was that like so again, I can't answer that there was a moment, but
No,
there
no.
have been like so many. It was
Right.
almost like a series, an ongoing series. I
Right.
still have them. I still have
Yeah. Yeah. It's
but things that are from my background in psychology, right? Like you learn all about developmental psychology and like all these stages and all this stuff, and you can see it. It's so if I was a research type person, it was fascinating, right? Because I was
right.
like, could somebody please come and do research on my brain and this situation with this chaos in my house? Like it was
Yeah.
just so fascinating, on so many
Sure.
levels that yeah, it was anyway. I mean, again, it could be hours of discussing this, but
Oh,
yeah,
well,
does
I'm
that
so interested. I find it all really interesting because to me, this is again coming to hopping on parenting differently, but this is us making choices that are different, but they're
yes.
not easy, right? Because some of it you think, oh, well, I wish I just had some blinders on and I'd just keep going through forward, and you
Well, and
can't.
I think you make a really good point. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
When you said parenting differently, probably one of the biggest hurdles for me and probably ongoing is I didn't feel like I had any signposts. Like I had no guidance available. So I'm
Right.
sort of disconnected from my parents for a lot
Okay.
of probably good reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I do have some contact, but it's
Yeah. Okay.
minimal. And um, so when I felt super kind of alone in it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was making it up. Like I had to live. I felt like
Right.
even though it's very fascinating because I had a lot of education, a lot of psychological education. I
Right.
knew how to research anything I needed to know.
Mm-hmm.
I used to call Google the god of Google. I would literally Google things,
right.
because
Yes.
oh my gosh, they're dying. What's happening?
Yeah.
Like for my children or
Yeah.
myself, or like, oh my gosh, I'm dying. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what is
have I
this?
lost my last marble? Like I would literally type in things sometimes, and when you say parenting differently, it's all different.
Right.
You know what I'm
Love
saying?
it.
Like it feels like so. Now, do I act in ways that I'm not proud of? And those things would be the same.
Yeah.
so, so if there's things that are the same, it's
Yes. Oh, yeah.
probably truly my programming.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
there's little snippets of like old things that were just fine. They were fine. And
Right.
and I'll bring them in or whatever, and memories. It's not awful, and it's not, it's not. I'm
Right.
not comparing. It's not horrific. It wasn't like a primetime TV show. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
It was just more like there wasn't any really love there. There
Right.
wasn't. There was a lot of things missing, and so
Mm-hmm.
when you come to parenting, you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. Like none. And then I felt like, isn't that crazy? There's so many people who probably feel like me and they don't have any education either. So like I felt blessed because I was a bit older. I
Right.
had resources. I was a psychologist by then, so I learned a few things, and I
Right.
had some friends who were so I could ask questions. Like it wasn't, and I thought, I used to think, oh my gosh, I think God or whoever has put me on this path, and everything I had done up until the time I had children was actually to prepare me to have
Mm.
children,
Right. Yeah.
even though it wasn't what was on my mind at all. Isn't that
No.
interesting?
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it helped me. It saved me, I think,
Mm.
for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And I felt that I was on the not in an educated way, but in reading and learning, and but just
Oh,
started to be curious though about myself. But no, the children or having children woofed me up into
oh my.
there were,
Yes.
and it was, I remember a really specific time when I thought, God, if I could just stop a minute, could you kids just stop,
Okay.
go away, let me
Turn
do
them
this
off.
work and then come on back,
That's
and
right.
then I'll be a good mama.
Can I please go on a 2-week retreat? to learn how to be a mom.
Yeah.
Yes, and then come back and I'll be much better. But
I'll be much nicer. Yeah.
yeah,
I'll just be a nice mom.
I
Yeah.
know, right? I have the same dreams. We're
Yes.
not alone. It's like, can we just do, is there a pause button? Like, can you do
Yeah.
pause like on, videos? Like, I'll come back to the rest of this in a
Yes.
little,
Yeah. Yes. Oh, that would be more awesome, wouldn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Just
Yeah.
everybody freeze.
I know.
Let me just. Mum is trying to have a thought. She's trying to go deep. She's just noticing something's coming up here. Like,
It's right. That's right. I know. I wanted it so bad. I still do some days, trust me. But
Yeah.
yes, like, can we pause this frame here and then I'll go research it or I'll call somebody and find
Yeah.
out what
But
I'm
just
supposed to
let me figure it out. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Indeed. Indeed. Awesome. I love this. And so for in the idea of them being their own human being, which we've touched on,
Hmm.
how do you handle your own expectations when they're not meeting them or have no interest in them or are going a totally different way? I don't know if you've yet experienced that.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, okay. I'm thinking you do, but I'm not sure. Um,
Oh my
like
gosh.
how do you handle that for yourself to still see them as they are?
Well, my kids are, every kid truly is unique, right? So I'm saying this because these are mine, but I believe
Yeah.
it's the same as everybody, right? Like we're all
Yeah.
in the, my kids are so special. And I don't necessarily even mean special in that better than anybody, but
No.
they're all so incredibly unique. It's like having three aliens in my house. They're so different. Even the twins are complete. They look
Right.
different. They're completely different personalities. Um, so I really and I think again, not getting into my therapy, but my
Mm,
because of my background, I know I have a tendency to be anxious. Well,
right.
I've definitely suffered with anxiety, right? So
Mm-hmm.
anxiety for me would show up as controlling things.
Yes.
Like I need things to be a certain way. So
Mm.
then I don't like feel like I'm going to have a heart attack, right?
Right. Yep.
So
Yep.
I've gotten so much better on that. Things are so much better there. However, that will still show up when you have three aliens in your house and they
Yes.
all act completely different, want different things, they like different foods, they have different interests,
Mm.
um, and they all need time in different ways from me,
Right.
time or energy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I don't know how I've done in that regard,
Right.
honestly. I'm going to find out probably. Um, I've tried, um, but they are they have very different needs.
Mm.
One probably has some type of anxiety as well. Naturally, she's had it since birth.
Right.
I would say she's struggles with much more, worries and fears and
Right.
anxieties about
Yep.
things. And my other two, not that I'm trying to put them in categories, but um, they both have been diagnosed with ADD. And
Okay.
so they're they're super creative. Like one of my oldest is like super creative thinker. She has ADD. She's very even brained. She's
Okay.
extraordinarily creative and very good with science and math too.
Okay.
So she's having a really hard time now at 15, figuring out like
Yeah.
where to go in school, and top
Right.
that with her ADD. It's very hard to get like to have her be focused and want to be
Oh, yes.
know a
Yeah.
path she wants to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a parent, you're older, hopefully a tiny bit wiser.
Yeah, that's what we
Um,
hope.
you can see the situation maybe a bit more globally than they can
Right.
right
Yeah.
now. And then how do you respect who they are as a person
Yes.
and their unique characteristics without saying you should go down this road here because it's the right one, right? So
Yes.
I try really hard to respect kind of who they are as people, but also
Yeah.
try to guide more than
Yeah.
tell.
Yes.
And
Yes.
sometimes when I see them going off the rails, which, this homeschooling and pandemic
Oh,
hasn't been easy,
no.
off the rails, meaning more like their grades are struggling, they're not
Right.
keeping up, but it's more emotional and distractibility, right?
Right.
So I try really hard to kind of meet them where they're at and then go, okay, but let's see if we can get you back on, let's find a path. Let's
Yes.
find a path, let's widen the parameters if we have to, and you can bounce off the sides like going to play bowling,
Right. I like that
Um,
analogy.
right, I'm trying without keeping it too narrow,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's my oldest, and then my twins, again, like they're not super academic. They don't
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it. It's a bit more of a struggle for them.
Right.
But one is a hockey player, and the other one, well, she hasn't found herself. She wants to be a supermodel, and
Oh,
I'm trying really hard. It's like,
yeah.
you're all so unique and different,
Mm.
and I'm trying to give you space and energy to be that different person while doing what I think is a mom's job, which is to kind of shuttle you safely down a
Right.
general socially acceptable corridor
Right. Oh,
without
I like that.
without it being too restrictive,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because
Mm-hmm.
her dad, their dad, my husband, is an entrepreneur and a business owner, and I've always pretty much worked for myself too. So we
Yeah.
are different in a lot of ways too
Yeah.
in this house. Like, we can see there isn't one path.
Right. Right.
So it's kind of like I'm trying. I don't know. Does that answer your
It
question?
does. It totally
Again,
does, Tanya. No, this is
okay.
all. I know. I guess for you, it feels like it's just normal, but for a lot of us, it's not. It's a lot of really wealthy information, like a lot of
Oh, okay, good.
wisdom.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm trying not to. I could keep going on and on about this stuff. I'm trying to kind of like answer your
You've
question.
got it. You got. No, you are totally. It's
Okay,
a
okay,
total
good.
pleasure. No
Okay.
problem. Um, I like that. I like that idea that so as a guide as opposed to the teacher, right? And then I would imagine you're sort of also on only because of how we relate a lot, but on the idea that it's still their decision, right? So it's still so there's things that some I mean there's some boundaries and things that are like
Yes,
that's not your
yes.
decision, right? I
Yeah,
know you
trying,
can't.
like, within age appropriate
Yeah,
boundaries, right?
yeah,
So, like,
yeah.
I try to encourage them to make decisions
Mm-hmm.
that they can live with without it being a long-term
Yes,
problem,
yes, yes.
or impact them in the long term. And so it's kind of some of this we're learning together, because I told you I grew
Mm-hmm.
up in Ireland. So the
Yeah.
US educational system is completely kind of foreign to me.
I
And,
think here too in Canada. Yeah.
it's so bizarre in a lot of ways. I grew up in a very, this is the way it is. And so you're
Right.
either in the academic route or the non academic route. And that's about as
Yeah. Broad.
vastly different as it was, and you pretty much took the same core courses. So
Yeah.
I didn't have to do this as a kid, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't fully understand it. But so I guess I'm trying to take all the information I know from everywhere, and it's
Right.
a little overwhelming at times.
Oh gosh,
I'm
yes.
not lying, there'll be a margarita here and there, because it'll be like, I don't know what to do with this child, like, I don't,
Yeah.
where am I,
How do I guide
how
them?
do
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
support you, but also make sure you're not falling off the tracks
Mm-hmm.
completely, so that in 4 years you're feeling lost and your choices are now limited.
Right. Or you start
Yes.
over. You kind of got to start
Right,
over,
right,
right? It's
right.
not
And then,
over, but you just
and
have
then
to
I
start
need,
over. Yeah.
exactly. And I need to stop worrying too, because I also believe things happen for a reason too, and we
Right.
always end up where we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's kind of like that. It's like a dance all the time. Two steps
Yes.
forward, one back,
Yeah.
sideways. Like, I'm not really sure what I'm doing,
Go
depending on,
backwards.
exactly, backwards, over my overhead. Yeah, like
Yes.
all kinds of shenanigans happening. But I try. It's like, I
Yeah.
think I try more for the guide, and then sometimes you step in and you really have to be kind of the mom, like,
Right.
you have to be a bit more, okay, it's this way,
Mm-hmm.
because it just is.
We tried this way, but now I've
Right.
decided it's
And
this
now it's
way.
just this way. And
Right.
I'm like, it's like, and that's just what's happening.
Perfect. 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 So let's to wrap it up for today.
Yes.
This has been amazing. What would you tell? I love this piece of advice. So, what would you tell your younger self when you first had your baby? Is there any advice that you would wish you'd got told, or what you would reflect back at this point?
Um, I love that question. And I think it would be trust your intuition more and worry less.
Oh, mic drop. Boom. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I would have listened, but that's what,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the key. I don't know if I would have listened either to a lot of these things, but you sort of go, wow, hindsight 2020, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
So I don't have, I have things I wish, might have been different, but I don't have regrets.
mm,
I try to live with the belief, true, honest belief I did the best I could.
yes.
Every step of the way, I do the best I can. Is it perfect? No, that's not what I'm going for.
No.
But I really try in most areas of my life to not live with regret. So
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Tanya.
thank
Thank you so
you.
much for agreeing to do this. And
Oh, it was my pleasure. I really hope it was helpful. I hope that
yeah.
somebody gets something from it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I did. So
Well, I was
there you
just
go.
going to say, and if they don't, too bad. I've enjoyed talking to you.
That's right. That's right. So, for all our viewers and listeners, to find out more about Tanya, we will have it all in our links and in the comments. And I would love people to subscribe so they don't miss any of these episodes and all the wisdom that these very brave people, parents, fathers and mothers are stepping up to sort of say, hey, this is what I'm working on and this is what I'm believing. So, thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you, Anja.